Hello, my name is Emily. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. I have an interesting video to share with you today. We're going to be deep diving into my 5-star reads, aka my favorites, aka books that I can't stop thinking about, aka books that you could probably read, right? I have 8 books to get through today, so let's get started. The first book that I gave 5 stars and that is a favorite and that I would recommend is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. This is a young adult thriller set in this world where the grace year is a unspoken year. When a girl turns 16, she's sent out with every other girl that just turned 16 into the wild because they believe that when she turns 16, she's gained some sort of power. So she's sent into the wild to release it and to come back so that she's ready for marriage. I know. Isn't that a little weird? It talks a lot about purification and the roles that women have in this world, and it's unsettling to say the least. But we follow our main character, and she has kind of seen the cracks in the foundation of what the county has been telling them and why they're being sent to the wilderness in reality and just everything. So not only is she navigating her own growing up, but she's also navigating every other girl that she's being sent into, and they have to fend for themselves. Did I say that? There's also poachers. There's a lot going on in this book, and it's pretty dark, pretty intense, but I enjoyed so much of it. Not enjoyed, but I thought that it was just so interesting to read. The writing is just the right amount of ominous. Our main character has such great strength. The amount of things that she does in this book blew my mind. 5 stars. I think it's so underrated, and I think more people should read it because it has a great conversation. The second book that I gave 5 stars and that I'm recommending is Sky Hunter by Marie Lu. This is a young adult dystopian. This author has also written Legend, the trilogy, and Warcross. I loved all of them. So this is basically set in a world that's super duper far in the future when the humans have kind of decimated the earth and all that's left is just traces of our current time period. We have the Federation that is slowly taking over every nation, and the only free nation left is Mara, which is where Talon, our main character, lives. She is mute, so she doesn't speak, and I think that it's so interesting. She's a striker in Mara, which is basically a fighter that fights the ghosts, but they're not actually ghosts. They're more like scientifically modified humans that are really, really strong, and they're like monsters. She fights those that come through their defense, and she also just fights for the freedom of Mara against the Federation. But the Federation is this giant controlling government that she has to protect her tiny little nation from. So it's about that journey. She's also not from Mara. She fled from somewhere else that was invaded, so she feels like she doesn't belong a lot of the time, but it's her coping with that and grasping with her love for Mara, that nation. Also, she gets intertwined with somebody from the Federation. That was so crazy. I highly recommend. I just really enjoyed reading this book, and I love Talon as the main character. 5 stars, obviously. The third book that I loved, that I gave 5 stars, that I'm recommending, that I'm gonna talk about right now, is A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Bridget. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and we have our main character who lives in our world. She is a human, and she's taken to this fairy tale land to meet the Beast character of this book. He has a small amount of time for somebody to fall in love with him before he gets stuck reliving the same year, the same season over and over and over again, and he lives in solitude. So she comes and she meets him, and it has 2 points of view, hers and his. I love her point of view though, because it really encapsulates the reality of if you were thrown into like a fairy tale world and you met this random guy and you're like, what is happening? And she's so funny. I just love her as a main character. The main guy is really good too, but there is another character in this book. He isn't a main one. His name is Gray. He is one of my favorite book characters. He is a bodyguard. He's a guard. He's the dark-haired, brooding, quiet guy who's actually really sweet, and I love him. This trilogy is all 5 stars, actually. This one specifically is so good because I think that it introduces as much as you need to know, and it has a great amount of action, and also it's really easy to read. So 5 stars. I loved it. Number 4, the 4th book I gave 5 stars that is a favorite that you should read is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I read this at the beginning of my reading career when it was really recommended, and this is about a world where there is no death. There's no sickness, there's no war, there's no death. It's kind of crazy, which means though that the world gets overpopulated because nobody's dying. So there's people being born, but there's nobody going away. And so it's this group of people, humans, that are the Scythes. They are tasked with the heavy duty to go and take lives. It's a very specific process. It's not just willy-nilly they're going out and killing people. And it's a heavy burden, essentially. We have these 2 characters that become apprentices to this one Scythe, and it's their journey with getting this knowledge that they're going to be Scythes, and the weight that comes with taking a life, and also how people would react to living in a world where there is no death. I thought that it was so well written, an amazing story. This is also a trilogy, but this first one is just really good because you don't know a lot about the world and it's all just very fresh and new. Great themes, crazy themes, well written, 5 stars. Book number 5 that I gave 5 stars is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I was a bit nervous about this because I didn't love The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but this was a bit of a different genre almost. I loved this story. This is about two guys in college, Victor and Eli, and they discover that when a person has a near-death experience, so when they almost die but they don't, they gain extraordinary powers. They gain some kind of superpower related to the accident. I just thought that was crazy. I thought that was crazy. So they find that out. Obviously, they kind of want to have a power, so they start doing these crazy things to almost die but not die. And things go wrong. Suddenly, they're enemies because of something that happened. I thought that their dynamic was so good to read. I don't know. This is a duology. They become so different and opposites, but also really deeply intertwined and in the same situation, but the outcomes are so different. I don't know how to explain it. It was just so amazing, and Victor is just crazy. It's a very morally gray, incredibly morally gray, but it was really well written, and I recommend. 5 stars. Number 6 that I loved, that I recommend, that I read actually a while ago is The Wrath and the Dawn. This is actually a retelling of the classic tale of 1001 Nights. So we have Khalid, who is taking a new wife every night, and by morning, she's killed. I know, I said the same thing. And then we have our main character, who is the first volunteer to become his bride because she is determined to take him down. He's killed one of her friends and she is over it. She's done with this. She's gonna take him down now. The way that she stays alive every night is that she tells him a story, and he keeps her alive to hear the rest of it the next night. So each night, it's the same thing happening. But then they start learning more about each other, and she starts realizing he's a horrible guy. Why am I kind of falling in love with him? I was saying the same thing. And also it has the trope of like she's a newly crowned queen, and also he's not what he seems, and there's just a lot of backstory. This is also a duology, but I haven't read the second one yet. I want to, but the way that this one ended, I was like, dang it. Dang it. I recommend. The writing is so good. I cried because the love just felt so intense. High stakes. 5 stars. Book number 7 that I gave 5 stars that I love and that I recently just read. My first read of this year is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. This is a young adult historical fiction slash fantasy slash sci-fi. She loves to mix it up. This follows Rosalind, who is the cousin of the main character of These Violent Delights. Read These Violent Delights before you read this book. I swear if you don't read that book before this one, I am gonna come for you, because don't do it. It's gonna ruin the first other two if you read this one first. Please, I'm begging. Because I know people are like, well, this is just a fresh new story, I'll just read it. But read the other two. They're gonna hit so much harder. You're gonna feel so much more. Thank you. I am sorry for that rant. Anyways, this follows her cousin and also Orion, who is a new character in this story slash world. They are both spies. She's an assassin. She has found herself immortal due to the events of the last 2 books, These Violent Delights. She doesn't age. She heals really, really fast. She's immortal. He is also a spy, and so they're tasked with a mission to infiltrate foreign society and to figure out who is killing all these people in Shanghai. But they're put together as a married couple because it's just easier to infiltrate that way. It's not as suspicious, basically. A fake marriage has never been done as well as it has in this book. Let me just tell you, their love storyline was good. It was like good in the beginning, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Who knows what's happening in the background, but this is pretty good. The middle, I was like, wow, this is actually kind of ooh la la. By the end, I was invested. I was stuck. And the ending, Chloe Gong loves cliffhangers, and I do too, but I can't rave enough about this book. 5 stars. Read it, but don't read it before These Violent Delights. Thank you. The 8th book, the final one that we're going to talk about, is actually my all-time favorite book. It is also one that's pretty popular, so I'm sure if you've been in this community, you've been recommended it. It's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This follows Jude, who has lived in our world. She is a human, she is immortal. When her parents unexpectedly die, she is taken to Elfhame, the fairy world with the Fae. She lives with the man who killed her parents, who is also technically her stepfather. And then we have Carton, who is the last in line in the royal siblings family. What's the word I'm looking for? He's the last in line. He's the youngest of the princes. Jeez Louise. And he is cruel. He's a cruel prince. He terrorized him and his little group of little friends. They terrorize her at school, and they never make her feel welcome, and they get roped into a grand scheme. Okay, Jude is one of the smartest characters I ever read before from, and she's like 17, and it talks a lot about court intrigue, political intrigue, schemes and betrayals, and also while being set in this beautifully terrifying world of Elfhame. Crazy. I read this book 5 times and I could read it 5 more. Something about Holly Black's writing is just amazing, and it's a trilogy. I had so much fun reading this the first time. I know that it's super duper overhyped. It's targeted as an enemies to lovers, but don't go into it thinking that. Maybe you do, I don't know. I did, and then I kind of forgot about it because the story was just so good. But there is a little romance plotline. Those were the 8 books that I have given 5 stars and that are my favorites and that maybe you should read. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. Maybe give it a like if you liked it. I'm gonna go now. Peace out.